The first sign that something had changed appeared near the Altair system, when a massive cargo convoy belonging to the Vorthan Empire simply vanished from existence without any warning or explanation. 50 heavy transport ships carrying vital supplies to 3 different worlds were there one moment and completely gone the next. No distress signals were sent, no debris was left behind, no witnesses saw what happened. The ships had simply disappeared as if they had never existed at all. General Krexmol stood in the command center of the Vorthan military headquarters, staring at the empty sensor displays with growing frustration and confusion. Impossible, he growled while pounding his 4 fists on the metal table. Our most advanced detection systems monitored that entire region continuously. There was no hostile activity detected, no energy signatures, no weapon discharges, nothing at all. Perhaps it was pirates, suggested his nervous aide, though his voice showed he did not believe his own words. What kind of pirates could make 50 massive ships disappear without leaving a single trace? Krexmol demanded. And how could they avoid detection by our military sensors that can spot a single fighter craft from 3 star systems away? The answer came exactly 3 days later, when all 50 missing ships suddenly reappeared in perfect formation directly above the Vorthan homeworld. The vessels had been completely emptied of all cargo and crew members, but they showed no signs of damage or violence. They simply hung motionless in orbit like ghost ships waiting for someone to claim Thema. Single message began broadcasting on all communication frequencies throughout Vorthan space. The voice was calm and polite, but somehow more frightening than any threat could have been. The property of the Vorthan Empire has been returned to its rightful owners. The crew members from your convoy are safe and comfortable on human worlds, where they are being treated as honored guests. When you are ready to discuss reasonable terms for their release, please contact us through standard diplomatic channels. The message was signed by someone called the Human Collective, and it repeated continuously for hours before finally stopping. The Vorthan leadership realized with growing horror that humanity had just demonstrated the ability to capture entire fleets without their most advanced military technology even detecting the attack. Similar mysterious incidents began happening all across the galaxy within days. Ships belonging to different alien species would vanish from heavily patrolled trade routes only to reappear days later in their home systems, completely empty but undamaged. Cargo that had been stolen from wealthy worlds was mysteriously redistributed to poorer planets that desperately needed supplies. Military patrol vessels found their weapon systems mysteriously disabled and their crews transported to unknown locations before being returned safely to their bases. The aliens slowly began to understand that they were not dealing with random piracy or simple theft. These were carefully planned operations that showed perfect knowledge of alien shipping schedules, military patrol patterns, and defensive capabilities. Someone was sending a very clear message that no alien vessel anywhere in the galaxy was truly safe from human reach. Dr. Sung Young monitored the galactic response to these demonstrations from her research station hidden in the Vega system. She watched alien news broadcasts and intercepted military communications while preparing reports for the Human Collective leadership. They still do not understand what is really happening, she told President Yoon Soo-young during their secure video conference. Most of them think we are just very advanced pirates who got lucky a few times. President Yoon studied the tactical displays that showed alien fleet movements and defensive preparations. How are our other development projects progressing? She asked. The terraforming program has successfully created 23 new garden worlds, and the population growth rate is exceeding all our projections, replied Dr. Sung. Industrial output has increased by over 400%. Since we began our isolation, the new technologies are performing far beyond our most optimistic expectations. And how are the aliens responding to our demonstrations? Complete panic, she said with satisfaction. The Galaxy Council is holding emergency sessions every single day. Several member species are demanding immediate military action against us, while others are secretly sending diplomatic messages trying to negotiate private deals. The unity they showed when voting to restrict us has completely disappeared. President Yoon smiled as she reviewed the intelligence reports. Perfect. This is exactly what we hoped would happen. Begin phase 3 of our plan. Show them what we have really been doing during our isolation period. Let them see the true extent of human advancement, the next phase of human demonstrations was far more dramatic and visible than the mysterious ship. Disappearances. New human settlements began appearing on worlds that had been considered uninhabitable by alien standards. Desert planets that had been empty for millions of years suddenly sprouted massive cities under protective domes. Frozen worlds at the edge of star systems became warm garden paradises. Within months, gas giant moons that had been ignored became thriving industrial centers. Alien long-range sensors detected the construction of massive space stations that dwarfed anything in known galactic architecture. Human ships using unknown propulsion systems began appearing in multiple star systems simultaneously, something that should have been impossible with existing technology. The humans were not just surviving their isolation, they were expanding and growing at a rate that terrified every alien government. The most shocking discovery came when alien intelligence services tried to infiltrate human territory using their most advanced stealth technology. Every single spy ship that entered human space was immediately detected, captured, and returned to its home system with polite messages explaining that espionage was not necessary. Since humans were happy to demonstrate their capabilities openly, the Galaxy Council realized that humanity had developed detection and defense systems that made alien military technology look primitive. By comparison, human space had become an impenetrable fortress that could spot and neutralize any threat before it got close enough to gather meaningful intelligence. Trade guilds across the galaxy began reporting massive disruptions as human alternatives to alien goods started appearing on black markets. Human medical equipment that could heal injuries in hours instead of weeks. Human computer systems that could process information at impossible speeds. Human transportation technology that cut travel times by 90%. The most troubling reports came from alien scientists who had been studying the human demonstrations using quantum physics and engineering principles that we do not understand, reported Dr. Thelnora from the Nexari Science Academy. They have achieved breakthrough technologies that our civilization has been trying to develop for centuries. Their advancement rate suggests they have been working on these projects for decades, not just the 18 months since their withdrawal. Elder Thaxor floated nervously during the latest emergency council session, his energy form flickering with ancient fear. "We made a terrible mistake," he announced to the shocked assembly. "We thought we were containing a young, aggressive species, but we have actually freed them from all the restrictions that were limiting their growth. They are no longer bound by our laws, our oversight, or our approval. They can develop any technology they want, build any weapons they choose, expand to any worlds they desire." The realization hit the Galaxy Council like a physical blow. They had not defeated humanity or put them in their place. They had simply removed all the chains that had been holding human potential back, and now they were seeing what humans could really accomplish when they were not trying to fit into someone else's rules. The aliens were about to learn that their greatest fear was not human aggression or expansion, it was human independence. The species they had tried to control had simply decided they no longer needed galactic civilization at all. And that was the most terrifying possibility any of them had ever faced. 2 years after the dramatic broadcast that shook the Galaxy Council, Ambassador Kim Tae-ho walked into the council chambers once again, but this time everything was completely different. The chamber had been rebuilt and expanded to accommodate the new reality of galactic politics. The human delegation now occupied the central position with other species, arranged in a circle around them, showing clearly that humanity was no longer a junior member seeking acceptance. Behind Kim came delegates from the human collective representing worlds and technologies that had not existed during the first negotiations. Dr. Park Sun-hee now served as Director of Galactic Relations. Commander Yang Min-soo represented the expanded human military forces. Engineer Lim Hai-won spoke for the terraforming projects that had created dozens of new worlds. The seating arrangement itself told the story of how much had changed. The proud Vorthan Empire now sat in a position that showed respect rather than dominance. The peaceful Nexari had requested seats closer to the human delegation. The ancient Kalthani had actually asked for human advisors to help with their aging population problems. High Counselor Vextara called the session to order, but her crystal form now flickered with nervous energy rather than the confident glow she had shown in the past. The Galaxy Council formally recognizes the human collective and requests to hear their terms for renewed cooperation. Kim Tae-ho stood with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. Thank you, High Counselor. We have carefully considered your proposal for establishing new relationships between humanity and the galactic community. The past 2 years had been transformative for both sides. The Galaxy Council had struggled desperately without human innovation and efficiency. Several member worlds had actually requested direct contact with human colonies, offering valuable resources in exchange for human technology and expertise. Others had sent tribute shipments hoping to gain favor with the new galactic power. The economic data was clear without human involvement. Galactic trade had dropped by 60%, transportation costs had doubled. Medical advances had slowed to almost nothing. Agricultural productivity had declined across dozens of worlds. The aliens had discovered too late how much they had depended on human creativity and problem-solving abilities. We accept the possibility of renewed partnership, Kim announced, but only as complete equals with full recognition of human sovereignty. The era of condescending treatment and artificial restrictions is permanently ended. One by one, the alien representatives stood to acknowledge the new reality. General Krexmol, now much older and clearly humbled by recent events, spoke first. The Vorthan Empire formally recognizes human independence and requests forgiveness for our past mistakes. We offer full military cooperation and mutual defense agreements. The Nexari delegate Salion was next. We have seen the miracles of human medical technology and beg for access to treatments that could save millions of our people. We offer our most advanced agricultural knowledge in exchange. Even the ancient Kelfani elder Thaxor floated forward with respectful energy patterns. The wisdom of ages teaches us that pride comes before the fall. We have learned that true strength comes from recognizing the strength of others. We request human assistance with our failing population centers. Species after species acknowledged what had become obvious to everyone: humanity was now the dominant power in the galaxy. The votes that had once restricted human growth were formally rescinded. The laws that had limited human expansion were completely eliminated. The oversight committees that had monitored human activities were disbanded. But Kim had one final condition that would reshape galactic civilization forever. Never again will any species attempt to limit another race's growth and development through force or restrictive legislation. He announced the galaxy is vast enough for all of us to prosper if we respect each other's right to exist and expand. The vote was unanimous because everyone understood that opposing humanity was no longer an option. The species that had once seen humans as a problem to be managed now competed desperately for human attention and favor. Dr. Park Son, he addressed the final session with words that would be remembered for generations. Humanity withdrew from this council 2 years ago. Not because we were angry, but because we were deeply disappointed. She said we had hoped for true partnership but found only prejudice and fear. We had sought equality but discovered that you saw us as children who needed constant supervision. The withdrawal had proven that sometimes the most powerful response to being underestimated is simply to exceed all expectations. Humanity had turned isolation into innovation, withdrawal into strength, and silence into the most effective demonstration of power the galaxy had ever witnessed. We learned during our time alone that true strength does not come from dominating others, but from having the courage to stand independently when necessary. She continued, we did not seek to conquer or control anyone. We simply wanted the freedom to grow and explore and create without artificial barriers. The human representatives announced their plans for the future: expanded exploration missions to unknown regions of the galaxy, terraforming projects that would create hundreds of new worlds, technology sharing programs that would benefit all species who treated humans with respect, cultural exchange initiatives that would help different species understand each other better. The Galaxy Council had been transformed from a body that restricted growth into one that encouraged cooperation and mutual advancement. The old system of senior species controlling junior ones had been replaced with a new model where all civilizations were treated as equals regardless of their age or technological Level as the final session ended, alien delegates who had once voted to cage humanity now waited in long lines. Hoping for meetings with human representatives, the young race that had been seen as a threat had become the mature civilization that everyone wanted to emulate. Trade agreements were signed that gave humans access to resources across the galaxy. In exchange for technology and expertise, defense pacts were established that would protect smaller species from aggression. Research partnerships were formed that would advance science for all participants. The transformation was complete. The species that had tried to limit human potential had instead freed humanity to become something far greater than anyone had imagined possible. The galaxy now revolved around human innovation and leadership, rather than the ancient traditions of the older races. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho looked around the council chamber one final time before the historic session ended. The faces that had once shown fear and hostility now displayed respect and hope. The species that had voted to restrict humanity had learned that cooperation was far more beneficial than domination. Humanity had proven that the best way to deal with prejudice is not to fight it directly, but to become so successful that opposing you becomes impossible. The age of human expansion had truly begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The revelation came during what was supposed to be a routine emergency session of the Galaxy Council. High Counselor Vexterra was addressing the packed assembly hall about the growing human threat when every single screen and display in the massive chamber suddenly activated without any warning or authorization. A figure appeared on all the displays simultaneously, showing a woman in a simple blue uniform standing in what looked like a beautiful garden with impossible flowers and trees. "I am Director Han The-yoon of the Human Collective," she said in a calm, steady voice that carried clearly through the universal translators. "You have been trying to contact us for quite some time now. We have been watching your efforts with great interest." The chamber immediately erupted in angry shouts and demands from hundreds of different species. The Vorthan delegate General Krexmol stood up and began shouting about acts of piracy and theft. The Nexari representative Selyun demanded the immediate return of all their missing citizens. The Kalthani elder Thaxor spoke in his ancient formal language about human aggression and violations of galactic law. Director Han waited patiently for the noise to die down before she continued speaking. "You seem very concerned about our recent activities in your territory. Let me show you what we have actually been doing during our period of isolation from galactic civilization." The displays changed to show images that made the entire council chamber fall silent in shock and disbelief. Massive cities with crystal spires reaching toward the sky-covered planets that had been barren rocks just months before. Gardens and forests grew in perfect harmony with advanced technology that seemed to blend nature and science into something beautiful and impossible. Fleets of ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen move through space, using propulsion systems that left no exhaust trails or energy signatures. Factories producing goods and materials at speeds that should have been impossible with any known manufacturing technology. Space elevators stretching from planetary surfaces to orbital stations that dwarfed the largest alien constructions. In 20 months of isolation, we have built 47 new garden worlds that can support millions of people each. Director Han continued while the images showed world after world being transformed from lifeless rock into thriving paradise. Our population has grown by 80% as families choose to have children in our safe and prosperous settlements. More images appeared showing technological marvels that made alien science look primitive by comparison. Hospitals where humans were being treated for injuries and diseases that should have been fatal. Schools where children learned at speeds that seemed superhuman. Research facilities where scientists worked alongside artificial intelligences that could think and create at levels beyond organic comprehension. Our technology has advanced by what you would measure as centuries, she said. We have achieved complete energy independence using methods that do not deplete natural resources. We have solved food security through agricultural techniques that can feed billions without harming the environment. We have developed military capabilities that make traditional warfare obsolete. General Krexmol stood up with his forearms shaking in rage. Lies and propaganda, he shouted. No species can develop that quickly without Outside help you are trying to frighten us with false images and impossible claims. You have severely underestimated what humans can accomplish when they are not restricted by artificial limitations. Director Han replied calmly, you thought we were? Just another young race that could be controlled and managed like children. You forgot that humans have always been survivors who adapt and overcome and grow stronger when faced with challenges. The images changed again to show the true scope of human achievement during their isolation. Massive space habitats that could house entire populations, deep space mining operations that harvested resources from asteroid belts and gas giants, terraforming equipment that could transform the atmosphere and climate of entire worlds in a matter of months. We have extended human lifespan to several centuries through medical advances that your species have been trying to achieve for millennia. She continued, our children now learn faster and retain more knowledge than any organic brain was previously thought capable of. Our workers can accomplish in hours what used to take days or weeks. The most shocking images came next, showing human settlements that had been built in supposedly impossible locations, underwater cities in the deepest ocean trenches, floating habitats in the upper atmospheres of gas giants, underground colonies in the cores of dead worlds that had been written off as uninhabitable. But the most impressive displays were the military demonstrations, human ships that could become completely invisible to any known detection system, weapons that could disable entire fleets without causing permanent damage, defense systems that could protect planets from any conceivable attack, energy shields that could stop the most powerful weapons ever created. We offer you a simple choice, Director, Han said as the displays showed the construction of a massive space station that was larger than many moons. You can continue to see humanity as a threat that must be contained and controlled, or you can recognize us as equals who deserve respect and fair treatment. The first path leads to conflict that you cannot win because we have moved far beyond your ability to threaten or intimidate us. The second path leads to mutual cooperation and prosperity, where both humans and aliens can benefit from shared knowledge and peaceful trade. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications of what they were seeing began to sink in. The humans had not just survived their isolation period, they had used it to transform themselves into something far more advanced and powerful than any species in known galactic history. The final image showed the massive space station under construction with details that made it clear this was not just a building project but a statement of intent. The station was designed to be a hub for human expansion into unexplored regions of the galaxy. It would serve as a launching point for expeditions to distant star systems that had never been visited by any known species. We will give you exactly 1 standard year to make your decision, Director Han concluded. The choice is entirely yours, but understand that humanity will no longer ask for permission to exist and grow and explore the galaxy. We have moved beyond the need for your approval or oversight. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the council chamber in complete silence. The most advanced alien civilizations in the galaxy had just been told that they were no longer relevant to human plans and ambitions. The species that had voted to restrict humanity had discovered that they had actually freed humans to become something far more powerful than they had ever imagined possible. High Counselor Vexterra tried to maintain order as the chamber erupted in panicked discussions and desperate planning sessions. The aliens finally understood that they were not dealing with a rebellion or a tantrum from a young species. They were facing the emergence of a new galactic superpower that had the technology and determination to reshape the entire galaxy. According to their own vision, the humans had proven that sometimes the most dangerous response to being underestimated is to exceed every possible expectation. The galaxy would never be the same again. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the Galaxy Council, and the effects were starting to show everywhere. Trade routes that had depended on human cargo ships for decades were now facing serious delays. The efficient human freight network had connected over 40 different worlds, moving goods faster and cheaper than any other species had ever managed. Now those routes sat completely empty like abandoned highways on the industrial world of Kepler 442b. Factory manager Li Dongwu stood in the control room of the massive shipyard, watching his workers pack up the last of the equipment. All machinery is to be dismantled and loaded onto our transport ships, he told his team through the intercom system. Nothing gets left behind for the aliens to use. The shipyard had been producing vessels for 12 different alien species using human designs and engineering techniques. The aliens had loved human ships because they were faster, more fuel efficient, and lasted longer than anything else in the galaxy. Human engineers had spent years perfecting these designs, and now they were taking every blueprint, every manufacturing process, and every piece of technology with them. Captain Troy Hyjin commanded the evacuation fleet from the bridge of the massive transport ship New Horizon ship. After ship was being loaded with human workers, their families, and all their belongings and technology. Make sure we take everything, she ordered her crew, every tool, every computer, every piece of research. If we developed it or improved it, then it comes with us back to human space. The aliens had made a terrible assumption when they voted to restrict humanity. They thought humans would panic and beg to come back to the negotiating table. Instead, humans had simply vanished from galactic civilization like they had never existed at all. Human colonies pulled back their borders and stopped all contact with alien worlds. Human traders stopped visiting alien markets and ports. Human scientists ended their research partnerships with alien universities. Human doctors stopped treating alien patients in galactic hospitals. On the Council Station, Nexus Prime Economic Advisor Thexporn studied the trade reports with growing worry and confusion. The data was getting worse every day. The humans had been handling 40% of all cargo shipments between star systems. He reported to the emergency council session their sudden withdrawal has created massive bottlenecks and delays across the entire galaxy. Supply ships that used to arrive every few days were now taking weeks to reach their destinations. Factories that depended on human-made components were shutting down production lines. Hospitals that relied on human medical equipment were running out of supplies. Agricultural worlds that had been buying human farming tools were seeing their crop yields drop dramatically. They will come back, insisted General Krexmol, pounding his four fists on the table. They are just throwing a tantrum like children do when they do not get their way. They need us more than we need them, and they will realize this soon. Enough. But weeks turned into months, and the silence from human space grew deeper and more troubling. No communications came from human worlds, no trade requests or diplomatic messages arrived, no human ships were spotted anywhere in alien territory. It was as if the entire human species had simply disappeared from the galaxy overnight. The other species began to feel nervous and confused. What were humans doing during their isolation? Why were they not sending any messages or requests for help? And most troubling of all, why did their own economies suddenly feel so weak and unstable without human involvement? Elder Thaxor floated nervously in his energy form during council meetings. Something is wrong, he kept saying in his ancient wisdom. The silence is too complete, too perfect. Young races do not simply vanish like this. They usually make noise and demands and threats, but the humans have gone completely quiet, and this frightens me more than their anger ever did. Reports started coming in from the border regions between human and alien space. Automated monitoring stations detected no human ship movements at all. Human communication networks had gone completely dark. Human trading posts and embassies remained closed with no signs of activity. The border worlds reported that it felt like looking into a dark, empty void. Intelligence officers from various alien species tried to gather information about what humans were doing, but they found nothing. Human space had become a black hole of information. No signals leaked out, no spies reported back, no diplomatic contacts provided hints about human activities. The most advanced alien surveillance technology could not penetrate the wall of silence that humanity had built around itself. Some alien leaders began to panic while others tried to remain calm. The Nexari delegate Celion suggested that perhaps humans were planning some kind of revenge attack. The Kelthani elder Thaxor warned that the silence might mean humans were preparing something terrible. The Vorthan General Krexmol insisted that humans were probably just struggling to survive without alien help and would surrender soon. But months passed and still no word came from human space. The galactic economy continued to suffer without human efficiency and innovation. Alien species that had voted to restrict humanity began to question whether they had made the right choice. The restrictions were supposed to make everyone safer, but instead they had created chaos, and uncertainty. Trade guilds started complaining about lost profits. Transportation companies struggled to replace human shipping networks. Manufacturing worlds could not find substitutes for human-made components. Medical facilities begged for human healing technology that was no longer available. High Counselor Vexterra called more and more emergency sessions, but no one had answers or solutions. The council had expected humans to fight back or negotiate or at least make some noise. Instead, they had chosen the most unsettling response possible: complete and total silence. Some alien species began sending secret messages toward human space, begging for trade deals or medical assistance. But these messages disappeared into the void without any response. It was as if humanity had built an invisible wall around their territory that no communication could penetrate. The Galaxy Council began to realize that they had seriously underestimated humanity. They had thought humans were just another young, aggressive species that could be controlled and managed through fear and restrictions. Instead, they had discovered that humans were far more organized, disciplined, and dangerous than anyone had imagined. The ability to coordinate such a complete withdrawal across dozens of star systems and millions of people showed a level of unity and planning that impressed even the ancient Calthani. The fact that humans could maintain perfect silence for months while the galaxy suffered around them showed a patience and determination that worried the most experienced alien leaders. As the months dragged on with no word from human space, the Galaxy Council members began to wonder if they had awakened something terrible. The humans had not responded with violence or threats. They had simply removed themselves from galactic civilization entirely, leaving behind a silence that grew more frightening with each passing day. The aliens were starting to understand that they had not defeated humanity at all. They had simply freed humans from the burden of playing nice with species that would never accept them as equals, and now no one knew what humans were doing in their isolation or when they might decide to break their silence. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who says nothing at all. Admiral Yang Sung-ho stood on the bridge of the massive battleship, indomitable, watching the final weapon tests of systems that officially did not exist anywhere. In galactic records, the ship was 3 times larger than anything humanity had ever built before, and it was just one of dozens taking shape in the hidden shipyards of the Kepler 438 system all around him. The secret construction facilities hummed with constant activity as workers built vessels that would have been impossible under the old Galactic Treaty Status Report. He commanded his bridge crew while studying the holographic displays that showed weapon power levels and armor strength readings. Chief Engineer Lim Min-ah looked up from her control station with excitement. In her eyes, all stealth systems are running at full capacity, Admiral. The new quantum armor plating is holding at 98% efficiency under maximum stress tests. The main weapon systems are ready for live fire testing whenever you give. The Order Young nodded with satisfaction. The past 18 months of isolation had not been wasted time at all. While the Galaxy Council held meeting after meeting trying to figure out how to deal with the silent humanity had been incredibly busy building and creating and preparing for what was to come. Kuan Yu Jin burst through the bridge doors with a huge smile on her face. Admiral, she called out, the breakthrough we have been waiting for is finally complete. The quantum tunnel drive system is fully operational and tested. We can now cross the entire galaxy in just a few days instead of the months it takes everyone else. Excellent news, Yang replied. What about the other secret projects we have been working on? The nanite manufacturing program is running ahead of schedule, she reported. The new medical technology can extend human lifespan by several centuries. The artificial intelligence integration project has produced results that are beyond anything we imagined possible, and the terraforming systems can turn dead rocks into garden worlds in just a few months. Xiao smiled grimly as he thought about how the aliens had actually helped humanity by forcing them into isolation. The Galaxy Council had tried to contain human growth and development, but instead, they had freed humans from all the restrictions and oversight that had been slowing them down. No more limits on military research and development, no more alien observers watching human scientific Experiments no more demands to share advanced technology with species that saw humans as dangerous. Children Communications Officer Kim Woo-seok looked up from his station. Admiral, we are still receiving daily messages from the Galaxy Council. They are demanding that we return to the negotiating table immediately. They are now offering to reduce some of the restrictions they tried to impose on us. Too little and far too late, Yang replied. What about our intelligence gathering operations? How much do we know about what the aliens are doing? Commander Park Ji-hoon activated the tactical displays showing detailed maps of alien space. We have been monitoring all Council territory for months using our new stealth reconnaissance drones. He reported their military forces are struggling with serious supply shortages because they lost access to human manufacturing. Several member worlds are demanding that their leaders take action to bring humans back into the galactic community. The information was exactly what Young had hoped to hear. The Year of Silence had taught humanity many valuable lessons about their former alien allies. The proud Vorthan Empire was not nearly as unified as they pretended to be. The peaceful Nexari were actually facing violent internal rebellions on several worlds. The ancient Kalthani were dealing with separatist movements that wanted to break away from their control. The Galaxy Council was far more fragile and weak than anyone had realized. The intelligence reports showed that alien economies were collapsing without human efficiency and innovation. Transportation networks were breaking down without human logistics support. Medical facilities were running out of supplies without human. Pharmaceutical technology agricultural worlds were struggling with food shortages without human farming equipment. But humans had used their isolation time to solve problems that had puzzled them for centuries. The breakthrough in quantum physics had led to faster-than-light travel that made alien ships look like they were standing still. The advances in artificial intelligence had created computer systems that could think and learn and create at superhuman speeds. The medical research had found ways to cure diseases and extend life that had seemed impossible before. Yang walked to the observation deck and looked out at the secret shipyards where hundreds of advanced vessels were under construction. Each ship incorporated technology that was decades ahead of anything the aliens possessed. Stealth systems that made human ships completely invisible to alien sensors. Weapons that could disable entire fleets without destroying them. Armor that could absorb energy attacks and grow stronger. The terraforming projects had been even more successful than the military developments. Human engineers had learned to transform dead worlds into beautiful gardens in just a few months. Instead of the centuries it normally took, desert planets became forests, ocean worlds became continents, frozen rocks became tropical paradises. The human population was growing rapidly as families moved to dozens of new worlds. Dr. Sung-mi Young entered the observation deck carrying reports from the research stations. Admiral, she said, the psychological analysis of alien behavior patterns is complete. We now understand exactly how they think and what they fear most. They are terrified of being replaced by younger, stronger species. They see every human achievement as a threat to their position in the galaxy. And what do you recommend? Young asked. We should begin phase 2 of our plan, she replied. It is time to remind the Galaxy Council that humanity is not just another species that can be pushed around and controlled. We need to show them what we have really been doing during our isolation. Young activated his communicator and sent a message to human commanders across the galaxy. Begin phase 2, he ordered. All units are to commence demonstration operations immediately. It is time for our former alien friends to learn that they made the biggest mistake in galactic history when they tried to cage humanity across human space. The response was immediate and coordinated. Advanced human ships began moving toward alien territory using quantum tunnel drives that allowed them to appear anywhere in the galaxy within hours. Stealth reconnaissance drones started gathering detailed intelligence about alien military positions and weaknesses. Special operations teams prepared for missions that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Aliens had spent a year wondering what humans were doing in their silence. Now they were about to find out. The species that had voted to restrict humanity was about to discover that they had not contained a threat at all. They had simply given humans the freedom to become something far more powerful than they had ever Imagine possibly. Yang looked out at the stars and thought about the future. The Galaxy Council had tried to treat humans like children who needed to be controlled and guided, but they had forgotten that human children grow up to become adults, and human adults do not forget how they were treated when they were young. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and this time there would be no restrictions or limitations or alien oversight to slow them down. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could really accomplish when they were not playing by someone else's rules. The massive amphitheater that humanity had constructed for the trials was unlike anything the alien survivors had ever seen. The walls were made of crystallized time itself, showing glimpses of past and future events, while the floor consisted of pure possibility that shifted and changed based on the thoughts and actions of those who stood upon it. Dr. Changmin stood at the center of the arena wearing simple robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. As humanity's chief philosopher, he had designed the trials not to punish the aliens for their past mistakes, but to help them understand what they needed to become if they wanted to survive in the new reality. Representatives from every surviving alien species gathered in the arena. The Scalan Regent stood with his remaining warriors, trying to maintain their dignity despite their obvious terror. The cracked prism lords floated in their crystal containers, while the deeplings swam nervously in their portable tanks. The few remaining stellar nomads huddled together like lost children. Dr. Shangmin began to speak, and his voice carried clearly through the vast space without any need for amplification. The trials you are about to face, he said, are not about proving your worthiness to humanity. They are about proving your readiness to be part of something greater than any single species. The first challenge materialized around them, and suddenly the aliens found themselves standing in a perfect recreation of the old Galactic Council chamber, but this time the chamber was under attack by void hunters, and the alien representatives had to work together to defend it. The Scalan Regent immediately tried to take charge, barking orders at the other species, like he had done in the old galaxy, but the Prism Lords ignored him and the Deeplings swam away from his commands. The stellar nomads began to panic as the void hunters approached the chamber. Dr. Shangmin watched as the aliens fell into their old patterns of behavior. The Scalans tried to solve the problem with brute force, while the Prism Lords attempted to use their energy weapons independently. The Deeplings retreated into their tanks, and the nomads prepared to flee. The simulation ended with all of them being consumed by the void hunters, just as their real civilizations had been. The aliens stood in shocked silence as they realized they had just repeated the exact mistakes that had led to their galaxy's destruction. Even faced with extinction, they could not overcome their pride and fear enough to work together effectively. The second trial began, and this time the aliens found themselves in a burning city where civilians of all species were trapped in collapsing buildings. The only way to save everyone was for each species to use their unique abilities in coordination with the others. The Scalans were strong enough to lift heavy debris, but they needed the Prism Lords to cut through metal barriers with their energy beams. The Deeplings could navigate flooded areas, but they needed the nomads to carry them to places where there was no water. Each species had abilities that were useless without the support of the others. This time the aliens began to understand what was expected of them. The Scalan Regent swallowed his pride and asked the Prism Lords for help. The crystalline beings dimmed their natural arrogance and focused their energy beams where the Scalans directed them. The Deeplings overcame their fear of the surface dwellers and allowed the nomads to carry their tanks to areas where their swimming abilities were needed. The nomads stopped trying to flee and instead used their ships to coordinate the rescue efforts. Slowly and painfully, the aliens began to work together. They saved most of the civilians in the simulation, but the process was clumsy and inefficient. Many people died because the aliens were still learning how to trust each other. The third trial was even more challenging. The aliens found themselves facing a choice between saving their own people or protecting members of other species who were in greater danger. A Scalan could save either a group of Scalan eggs or a larger number of Prism Lord crystals, but not both. The Deeplings had to choose between preserving their own water supplies or sharing them with dying nomads. The Prism Lords could use their energy to either repair their own damaged crystals or to power life support systems for other species. This trial pushed the aliens to their emotional breaking point. Many of them had spent their entire lives believing that loyalty to their own species was the highest virtue. Now they were being asked to sacrifice their own people for the good of others. The Scalan Regent was the first to make the difficult choice. He directed his warriors to save the Prism Lord crystals, even though it meant allowing Scalan eggs to die. His people hissed in anger and disbelief, but he stood firm in his decision. The surviving Prism Lords saw his sacrifice and responded by using their energy to save Deepling habitats instead of repairing their own damaged crystals. The Deeplings in turn shared their precious water with the nomads, who used their ships to evacuate everyone to safety. For the first time in the trials, the aliens succeeded completely. No one died in the simulation because they had learned to put the needs of the group above the survival of their own species. The fourth trial tested their ability to plan for the future together. The aliens were given the task of designing a new civilization from scratch. They had to create government systems that would prevent the mistakes of the past, while allowing each species to maintain their unique culture and identity. The discussions were heated and emotional as old prejudices and fears surfaced. The Scalans wanted a military hierarchy, while the Prism Lords preferred a council of elders. The Deeplings advocated for environmental protection, while the nomads emphasized freedom of movement, but gradually they began to find common ground. The Scalans realized that their military strength was useless without the wisdom of the Prism Lords. The Crystal's beings understood that their ancient knowledge needed to be tempered by the practical experience of other species. The Deeplings learned that their environmental concerns were shared by all the species who had lost their homeworlds. The nomads discovered that true freedom came not from running away from problems, but from having the courage to stay and solve them together. The fifth trial was the most personal one yet. Each alien had to face their own role in the destruction of their galaxy. They were forced to relive the moments when they had chosen pride over wisdom, fear over courage, and hatred over understanding. The Scalan Regent had to watch himself mocking human warnings about the Void Hunters. He saw his own arrogance and prejudice reflected in the faces of his people, and he understood how his actions had doomed not just his